Hey, welcome back to another video, folks. Thanks for tuning in again. As always, massively appreciated. It's just keeping me going through this lockdown because we're still in lockdown in Wales, so still training upstairs and dog walks and sitting in the garden only for me. So if you are able to get out and about, I hope you've been sort of making the most of it in a responsible way, of course, which I'm sure you would be. Today's video is going to be a chatty one because I'm sat on the sofa, so apologies for turbo waffle already, but you know what I'm like. If you're clicking that play button, you've probably got an idea of what goes on already. It's a question that I get asked quite a lot on messages and all sorts, but especially on kind of mountain leader courses and rock climbing instructor courses, you know, the kind of instructor qualification ones. And that question is, can I make a living off working in the outdoors? And the answer is yes, you can, right? A more pertinent question might be, can you make a good living off working in the outdoors? And still the answer is yes, you can. If you're going to ask, can I get absolutely minted working in the outdoors, the answer is probably no on that front. But you know, it's, people will tell you they do it for their lifestyle and all this kind of thing, and yeah, that's true, isn't it? Obviously I absolutely love my job, and I do it because of that reason. Of course, I've got bills to pay and I want to earn money. I want a nice car and nice shiny climbing equipment. Thankfully, they're fairly small wants in the whole scheme of things. I don't aspire to have a house that costs £1 million or anything like that, which is lucky because I'm not going to earn that working, doing what I do. But that question is a good question, isn't it? You only have to look at job adverts to see what a full-time outdoor job pays, right? And there's all sorts of wages out there. From, you know, if you're working for a PGL type company, you might end up being employed as an apprentice when you're first starting out, like an official apprentice, where, you know, the pay is not so good, but maybe it includes you know, food and accommodation and things like that. My first ever outdoor job, it was quite a long time ago now. It would have been, I think the season started in the year 2000. I think it was 2000. I think that's right. And I was on £40 per week, included food and accommodation, though. The accommodation was living in a tent. The food was alright, it was nothing wrong with it. I didn't have bills to pay particularly. I had a mobile phone that was probably pay as you go, but you know, I was getting paid to live in France and just have an absolute blast. That money is terrible, isn't it? £40 per week. Don't know, minimum wage exists then, I'm not even really sure really. Didn't care though, I couldn't have given a monkeys about it. I was getting paid to be like a outdoor instructor and live in France. It was flipping ace. I had a ball and I learnt shed loads. Of course, as most people do, 18 years old, living and working abroad, I thought I was like God's gift to being an instructor. I wasn't. I was awful. I was actually terrible. Safe, don't get me wrong, obviously I was safe, but I'd like to think I'm a lot better now. But then, you know, will I in 10 years time look back and think, oh, I'm even better now? Well, I hope so, because I want to keep improving. That's part of the game, isn't it? I've said this in other videos, but if you think you know it all and you know, there's nothing left to learn, you're wrong, and you might as well give up at that point. It's just it's a bit depressing, that outlook, isn't it? We've all got stuff to keep on learning. But £40 per week, it's tough, isn't it? I don't know what they pay these days. It'll be more than that, but it won't be a lot, right? And I guess that's the big thing with the outdoor industry, is it's really tough to earn money when you're first starting. When I say earn money, earn decent money when you're first starting. And that's, you know, that's not unique to the outdoors, is it? I'm sure that's the case in many industries. You can go and look at those job adverts on IOL and all those kind of places, various different Facebook pages, and you can get a really good idea of what you know the pay is, obviously, because they say it on there. Some of those jobs pay okay, some of them don't pay very much at all, and everything in between. Actually, I find what people mean when they ask me this question, though, is can you earn that wage by sort of being freelance and or self-employed, right? And that's maybe where I'll go with the answer in this video as well. Again, it's easy to work out what you can earn, because, you know, when people advertise jobs on the freelance instructors page on Facebook, for example, nearly always they put a rate there. They don't always, and they probably should, because it's a bit of a pain in the butt otherwise, but you know, it says X amount of pounds. We're talking in this video about, you know, that ML, RCI, MCI kind of bubble, because that's my bubble. I don't know what kayaking instructors earn. Don't know what mountain bike instructors earn. I don't know what archery instructors earn. No idea, because it's not my sphere of knowledge. But in my climbing and hill walking bubble, wages for a day probably start at around £100. Thankfully, it's been quite some time since I worked for £100 per day. But even then, you can work it out, can't you, as to how many days you have to work to earn a decent wage, right? So, let's say it's £100 a day. Then, you can work that out really simply, can't you? 100 days, what's that going to earn you? Well, you can work that out. 200 days, is that a reasonable amount to be working? Can you get that much work? Hey, that's pretty tough, eh? As a mountain leader, for example, getting 200 days a year is going to be tricky. As a rock climbing instructor, getting 200 days a year going to be flipping difficult. If you've got the both of them, it's going to be a bit easier. Still going to be hard though, right? When you're first starting out, it's so much easier to fill your diary of work if you've got like a spread of qualifications. So I said I don't know what kayak instructors earn and all that kind of thing. It's going to be pretty similar though. But if you've got that kayaking ticket, got that mountain biking ticket, plus you've got your RCI and your ML, suddenly you've got like 4 things instead of 1 thing. So you're far more employable. So rather than being employed for a day here and there, you can work for a whole week on, say, a kid's residential program or something like that. A lot of ML people might earn their money off, like in inverted commas, charity events, doing your 3 peaks kind of stuff. Maybe there's a couple of days, a few days work for those things, especially at weekend. Your RCI type people might earn, off similar charity events, charity abseils and all that kind of stuff. But for the most part, if you're trying to get paid work as a freelancer, it's going to be on kids kind of stuff, to be honest. If you want to tap into that adult market, it's much harder. You tend to have quite a lot of experience to start with, and potentially start to think about creating your own market as well. And this is where it becomes easier to earn your own money, is when you're creating your own work, right? So you've stopped working for other people. I earn a good living, right? Good by my standards, what I consider to be an acceptable amount, from being a freelancer, right? But I got kind of, is it a lucky break? I don't really like that word lucky, but I kind of got a break whereby I got some guaranteed winter work. That is the tricky bit, isn't it? Is getting work in those 3 or 4 winter months. And I worked on an instructor training program down in Cornwall, teaching other people to do, be an RCI, to be an ML, all that kind of stuff. And that was great, and that was the thing that enabled me to take the jump to being full-time freelance, because it's a commitment. And if I can give one bit of advice to people watching this who want to make money on working in the outdoors, it's commit fully to it, right? I think it's probably the same in most things in life, right? I was working at centres full time, right? I was sort of a chief instructor at a centre, and I started taking on little bits of freelance work here and there, which is great for getting your name out there and getting some contacts and all that kind of thing. And like I say, getting that winter option, and I did that for a few years, that just enabled me to go, right, well, that's taken care of. That's the trickiest part to take care of, and that's ticking the box for that. Now I can fully commit to being freelance, right? And that, I just think that's kind of what you need to do. If you're doing it alongside another job, right, you can keep ticking over, but at some point you need to fully commit to it, right? There were some pretty tough times along the way, right? There was definitely times I sat down with people and just, had conversations along the lines of, I don't know if I can make this work. I don't know where that next paycheck is coming from. And they're tough, right? There came another break for me that let me become a lot more mellow about things. And I might do a video about this one day, depending if people want to know about it, maybe I will. But I got a bit of a break and got involved in seismic projects for oil companies, working as a mountaineer. And up to that point, freelance, I'd been earning between £100 and £150 a day, something like that. A daily rate I was absolutely happy with, right? I was happier when it was 150 compared to 100, but somewhere in that range, I was quite happy with that. But the difficulty is, at that kind of money, it's hard to save much up to have that buffer, isn't it? And so that's why it's always a little bit stressful. And the reason that seismic work was an absolute godsend for me was it enabled me to build up a bit of a buffer. I'm trying to remember this morning what I used to get paid for that. I think it was somewhere along the lines of £220 a day, and that was a shed load of money to me. And more importantly, that daily rate, they were for blocks of work as well. So you'd be working for probably like 8 weeks, something like that. And you get paid each and every day. You don't get any days off unless something funky happens, and maybe I'll talk about that in the videos. But you don't get any days off. You're working 2 months solid. But you can do the maths there. 8 weeks times 220 per day. Suddenly you're getting a pretty good paycheck, and you're spending no money while you're out there. You're living in a porter cabin surrounded by razor wire and armed guards and stuff like that, because it takes place in some exciting places. But if you're spending no money other than what your mobile phone bill costs, and maybe you're covering rent back home anyway and whatever, you're able to put stuff in the bank. So I did a few hitches of that, and that got me X amount of pounds in the bank, and that was enough to enable me to just be properly mellow and not be stressed about finding work all the time. And that was a bit of a game changer for me, because although I came back from the oil work and was doing the same work for similar money, having that buffer just lets you chill out a bit, and that probably comes across in your work as well. I'd like to think I've never been particularly a stressed person in my work, but it probably does come across if you're super mellow and not stressing about where the next meal is coming from and stuff like that. And I might be exaggerating a bit there, but probably only just, really. All right. At that ML and RCI level, you probably are earning somewhere between that £100 and £150 per day. All right. If you go further with it and get your MCI, which is the qualification I mostly use, and your winter ML, maybe you're more often at that higher end, around the 150, and perhaps you're able to creep up above that a little bit. Interestingly, when you get your MCI, you don't suddenly jump up in money loads, right? I think pay, it probably more or less starts around that 150, depends who you're working for, and maybe up to 180-ish. So you're going up a little pay band, if you like, but it's not like groundbreaking about amounts of money that are going to completely change your life. Winter ML is probably similar. Winter MCI, you're probably earning a bit more during those winter months for that work, but again, not massively so. So how do you kind of jump up to earn, rather than a wage you can kind of live off, a wage you can kind of enjoy and actually work a bit less? Well, the key to that is creating your own work. The sort of game changer for me was starting to run my own RCI courses, my own ML courses and stuff like that. It's purely a numbers thing. One of my favourite bits of work is like learn to lead work. So you've got 2 people for 2 or 5 days, sometimes 10 days, whatever, but it's a 1-to-2 ratio. So you're always going to be a bit limited by the numbers coming in as to how much money you're making per day. Again, you can work out the figures, but I can't even remember what I charge now. It's done on the website, and I just get an email to say that a booking's come. But it's something like £200 a person for a 2-day learn to lead thing. So you can do the maths as what I earn a day there with 2 people. It's fairly simple. So that's a decent daily rate. I am absolutely not complaining at earning that amount of money per day. It's great. But then do some maths in your head now for like an ML course. I charge £340 for an ML course. Let's say it's a training, so that's 6 days. I have to employ someone for one of those days. Therefore, I've got to pay a wage for that day. What I actually do is I tend to employ people for 2 days of that. So I've got to pay 2 days' wages. That person is probably an MCI type person, so they're getting around about £300. So you can work out now, the ratio is 1-to-6 on an ML, so you can do some maths there, take away what wages I'm paying, and you get a rough idea of what you're getting from that course. Now, there's other costs involved there, from fees that I have to pay to mountain training, travel costs, and obviously there's overheads in terms of insurance, etc, etc, etc. But if you've got 6 people come in, you're going to earn more than with a course with 2 people, aren't you? I often think that maybe I should have got into something like archery. I think with archery, the ratio on their training courses is more like 1-to-12. They must rake it in. Must be flipping ace doing that. I wouldn't really want to do it though. So there's always a balance, isn't there? So you can literally, when you're trying to work out if you can make a living out of the outdoors, just get a pen and paper, work out a sort of a band of what you're going to get paid per day, and how many days you need to work to get whatever your target is, whether that's 10,000, 20,000, 40,000, whatever it might be. Write that number down and go, right, I need to work that many days. Is that a possibility? Yes or no? I never really did that. And honestly, I never did. I just kind of went on my sort of merry winging it way, and the money came in when it needed to come in, and I worked really hard. And that's the key, right? Working hard. No one is just going to give you work, all right? It's just not going to happen. The actual instructing part is the easy part. Honestly, it is. The tough part is going and getting the work in the first place. An outdoor instructor who is making some success of the outdoor industry, they're probably a really good instructor to start with, but actually they're more than that. They've got some understanding of sort of marketing and networking and all those kind of things to actually create the work themselves. You could be a freelancer your entire life, right, or entire working life, and earn a wage you're happy with, but you're always going to be a bit limited because you're the end of the line kind of thing. The client is paying that company, they've got their overheads, and then they pay you, so they're taking their cut out of it, aren't they? If you're working directly for those clients, you cut out the middleman, you're going to earn more money, but you're going to work harder, not just in having those extra skills of marketing and stuff like that. You're going to work longer hours. You've got to be on it with your social media. You've got to be on it with keeping your website up to date. You've got to be on it keeping your bookings up to date, making sure you've got enough money to pay that tax bill and all those kind of things, and being sensible and planning. So when you get home at 5 o'clock at night as a freelancer, you put your kit away, get ready for the next day, done, watch TV, go and train in your attic, cook your dinner, whatever that might be, go climbing. The weather's so nice, I wish I could be climbing after work at the moment, it'd be flipping lush. But if you're a self-employed person trying to create your own work, that's when it becomes a bit tricky. And getting that balance right is really hard, isn't it? Yeah. At the very beginning, I alluded to the fact that you've probably got into this industry because you want to work in the outdoors and you want the lifestyle. You want to be climbing after work, or kayaking or biking, whatever it is that you're into. Suddenly, if you're finding yourself working another couple of hours after you've finished your actual work, and suddenly it's 7 o'clock and you haven't eaten yet, have you got time to climb outside? Are you going to be psyched to train? Have you got any days off? Because it's really hard to say no to work when you're self-employed. That's money coming in, and you have to say yes to start with, especially if you come from a freelancer's mindset where you have to say yes to everything to get the work to start with. At some point you have to teach yourself to say no, actually I don't want that work. Or if you're self-employed, okay, I'll take that booking, but it will be my mate Mr. or Mrs. X doing the day, and I'll employ them for the day, and obviously then you're making less money on that day. But it's really hard to say no. There's a load of waffle in there, wasn't there? Loads and loads of waffle. As I said, sit down and work out what you think you could earn from it. Don't forget to take into account tax bills and everything like that. And I said that I never do it. Literally last week was the first time I've ever sat down and worked out exactly how many days I need to work to earn the wage I want to earn and still have enough time off. I have 3 months off over the winter to go climbing in Spain, so I have to take that into account as well. So because of that, I've always worked like as much as humanly possible throughout the other 9 months of the year. But it's too much, right? For the last couple of years, I haven't done enough after work climbing because I'm tired and I've got other work to do, and I haven't had enough days off to just go climbing. So, and that's fine because I've had 3 months off each winter, so I can look forward and train to that. But this year, because we've got loads of time to do all these bits of planning, I've sort of worked out for next year how many days I need to do. And it's a lot less than I actually would normally do. Not this year, I haven't worked many days this year for obvious reasons. But let's go full circle. Can you earn a good wage off being an outdoor instructor? The answer, I've probably guessed in my mind, is yes, you can, but only if you work really hard and put loads of effort in and do loads of learning and just be good every single day. Do get that bit of paper, work out what you need to do, and fire away with any questions. I know that's a waffly one, I do apologise, but I couldn't really see any way of not doing a waffly version of that one. Ask those questions, click the like button, click the subscribe button, you know the score. Find us on Insta, find us on Facebook, Hope you've enjoyed this video. More videos coming up very soon.